evening and welcome to day 5 of Museum Week. Our celebrations here on Museum Culture Marketing continue. We started day 1 with our interaction with Hitashri to celebrate mask making. On day 2, we moved our interaction with the Gargoti Museum, and so forth. Every day we have been interacting with one theme and with different museum. Today is special. Today our focus is on climate. The entire idea is to focus all our concentrated efforts to discuss climate change, climate emergency, and today we are going to be joined by Aakshat Sinha. I will just get him in a minute to join us. He's a curator and an artist, and we will talk about art that is inspired by climate and nature.
Hello.
Hi Akshat, welcome. How are you
Hi,
doing?
Shreyanka. How are you?
All
Excellent.
good. Great. So how are you quarantining?
Oh, pretty intense because I've been doing a lot of sessions. This is my third session for the day, actually.
Thank you for giving us time. I
Oh,
wanted to
my
start
pleasure.
by asking, because when one looks you up, one gets to know that you did a master's in mechanical engineering in Moscow. That's a lot of M's going on. And
Right.
from there, a decade back, you sort of had a moment of realization, then decided to focus on creativity, prioritize the arts. So how did that moment happen? Because I'm also assuming a lot of people think about the arts but don't really make that transition. So I wanted to start by asking you that.
When I completed my master's in 1998, so that makes me kind of ancient as well. Uh, I worked in Moscow. I'm in 2000. I came back to and 2000, 2006. I had my own consulting firm. And then, it was all good, a lot of money, everything. And this is actually pre Lehman Brothers. So it's not as if, the things broke down and I kind of opted out. It's more to do with I kind of realized that although it was very exciting because I was into headhunting, I was into HR actually. So I moved from uh, engineering to HR in terms of recruitments and it was very challenging because I was into headhunting and it was really exciting. But then suddenly I realized that there was a lot going into it, and the time, the effort, and everything, and somehow the returns in terms of emotional, returns weren't really there. So I actually quit. I retired at the age of 32, and then I realized, I mean, for a year and a half, I didn't do much. I just tried to explore as to what I could do, and I used to paint when I was young. My mother used to, she did from JJ and JJ School of Arts in Mumbai, but she did from distance because when she did it, it was a very different world at that time. From Bareilly and all, she couldn't really travel. She did distance learning, but she tried to inculcate those habits into me, and all the gifts that I gave out when I was young were canvases. So it was, I don't know, maybe it's a pretty logical, movement from there to, I started writing and then I saw a canvas which was lying down. I picked it up, started painting. I decided that I had to understand the nitty-gritties, so I did a one-year diploma in fine arts. And despite having a double degree, I mean, I had a bachelor's and a master's in engineering. But I realized that, the technical aspect was important, so I needed to understand art in terms of technicality, the creativity as to what needed to be, portrayed or whatever that might have been there. But so I did my course, and then 2010 onwards. So it's actually a decade from that. I've been into
Okay.
painting myself, and I started a little bit curation, and that's what I'm doing more often now.
Yeah. So what does it sort of mean to be a curator? Because one of the whole act of curation is really about observing and sort of putting things in clusters, in themes. So when you look at the entire process of curation and the evolution of the artistic temperament, over the decade that you've been seeing, what is your sense? What is your sense of that journey? How has the process of curation impacted you? How have you evolved as a curator, as an artist?
So I would split my art, life in two parts. I mean, so 5 years each of the last decade. So the first 5 years are primarily where I was experimenting with my own stuff. I was creating paintings. I was doing street art. I was doing comics. I was doing a lot of different things and exploring how to, utilize art in my own practice and kind of create my own language and grammar for it. Somewhere down the line, I also realized that you know, I had started to curate. I didn't realize I was curating already. So I was organizing a lot of uh, exhibitions, camps, workshops, and that's when I realized that the my management skills which had been there could be put to a better use when I was looking at the artists putting up their own stuff. So before I did my own solo show, I had curated somebody's solo show already.
Okay, okay, that's very
So
interesting.
yeah, that's an interesting thing. So before I actually realized that I could curate, I mean, so putting up your own solo show is a mammoth task, planning on it, how to do it, and everything. A year before that, I did it for Rajiv Sembal, and we hired the Triveni Art Gallery, and we did it there. So I realized that there was a lot of gap in terms of the understanding that artists had of the management, how the art has to be put together, how the artworks have to come together to speak one language. The person who to view this gallery, to view this exhibition, uh, they would have a gap in terms of the language that they would use to explain their works as well. So as a curator, I mean, I personally believe curator is a very widely abused word across the world because it can relate to anybody who's organizing something to somebody who's actually ideating, conceptualizing, and then around this theme that the curator develops, he can get one single artist or multiple artists to come together and create uh, a single harmony in the exhibition that finally gets displayed. I think I would rather feel that the individual, the curator is not necessarily the correct word because to curate, I mean, curate was the person who used to be in the church, who used to be responsible for all the artifacts and everything. I mean, things of significance that used to be with the church, and the curate was the person who used to put them together and display for the public and utilize them. So I would rather that I would be a person like a curate where I see what is the significance of that individual artist, what is that individual artist bringing. So if it is a solo show, then I see how the entire series being put on display comes together to speak one language. Or if it is multiple artists, then how do all the artworks kind of have a single theme or a bond or a thread that kind of connects them.
So, when you're curating, I'm also assuming one part of the story or the narrative is, of course, the artist, the sensibility, the art that's going in. The other part of it, I'm also assuming, is you're connecting the dots to the context, that we are living in and the world out there. So, our
Absolutely.
context thematic, of course, is climate and the climatic sort of emergency out there. Specifically with respect to climate and climatic emergencies, what have you seen in terms of the artistic evolution and the artistic responsiveness to the theme over a period of time?
So I think that climate or nature or everything around us, this environment that engulfs us and we are part of it, uh, has been a muse for all the artists, across generations, from early man to I mean, from the cave paintings to everything. So I think what we have seen around us has impacted us to an extent where the all artists, I mean, all creators have utilized that and responded to it. Uh, so when you reached out to me and you wanted that we could speak on climate and the environment around us, uh, I had hoped I mean I have put together something which is very it's not straightforward. I have deliberately chosen artworks from different eras in which they speak about the environment around us, the climate around us, and the objects in the nature. So nature that abounds us, that surrounds us, is, of the flora, the fauna, the animals, the nature, the mountains, the snowscapes, the seascapes, and everything. And somehow these have always been very instrumental in what the artist has portrayed. I mean, so when I speak of art, right? So artist can be somebody who's into visual art, somebody who's in performing arts. Every time what we are doing is actually storytelling, but using what we see around us.
Right. So, what's the first artwork that you're going to be sharing with us?
So what I'll do is I'll now switch over to a front camera, which will look at my laptop, and hopefully I'll just try and adjust that, and I'll see. So uh, yeah, over to the images rather than me.
Okay.
So so the first work that I have in front of me is the Great Wave of Kanagawa, which is a work by Hokusai. So Hokusai is a Japanese artist who made multiple images, and I mean, he made multiple paintings of the Fuji, Mount Fuji, or rather, I mean, so in Japanese it would be Fujiyama. Yama is mountain. So if you see that there is a wonderful wave which is, kind of just burst upon everything, and there is the Mount Fuji, which is like the highest mountain in Japan, which is insignificant when you look at it with the perspective of the wave. The wave is closer to us, the wave is more, uh, uh, it's stronger, it is something which is much larger than what the mountain is behind. The wave is also,
Okay.
uh, it's sea, it is water, water is very fluid, but to capture the idea of a wave or a fluid medium, which is so immense, when you look at it, from this direction, from this side, where the mountain seems to be insignificant. So, people
It
have
almost seems the
written,
wave is swallowing up the mountain. From the way
absolutely,
I'm looking here, it almost seems as if the wave is swallowing up the mountain. And figuratively, it almost feels like a lion or a sea lion. Almost like visually, it could be an animal on the left.
true. So if you look at the wave has an kind of an upper lip and a lower lip. So it's kind of got a mouth which is just about to gobble up the mountain. Uh,
Sure.
no, I mean, so Hokusai made multiple images. Like I said, he made a series of 100, and then he made it. So this is from one of his series of 36 that he had done. I feel that it's very, so he's kind of counted as an illustrator, artist also, because he used lines very significantly. Uh, so if you see, the lines are very important, how they move, the movement of the lines, how the entire composition kind of moves from the right to the left to the top, and then kind of the wave brings your eye back down onto the Mount Fuji. So although in the first glance you feel as if the wave is the highlight of the painting, and the title of the painting is also the Great Wave, but the wave kind of leads your eye onto the Mount Fuji itself.
Right. You almost find an anchor within the mountain, sort of you come and sort of pause there. And what's also interesting, Akshat, is that you chose a painting by a Japanese artist because, when you think of Japan, specifically in recent time, you do
Right.
start thinking about tsunami and earthquakes and a lot of climatic emergencies out there.
That's right.
Do you see Japanese artists specifically being influenced by nature more or less? Is there any comment that you have on that?
I think mostly all artists are influenced by the area that they inhabit. So and that is the truest form of reflection. So an individual, so I think the first novel that any writer writes is very autobiographical, which is the same
Sure.
for an artist. Also, we kind of reflect whatever we have seen around us, whatever has impacted us the most. And whatever has impacted us the most is what we have seen around us. So the
Okay.
great waves, and you have rightly mentioned that Japan, lying on that special, the line where the earthquakes, the volcano, and all activity, tsunami, and everything kind of happens around Japan. And Japan itself is little landmass and a lot of sea and a lot of water
Right.
around it. So this is evidently an impact on the artist, and the artist has captured that and put it forward. I scattered theories and spoken about them. Hokusai is definitely somebody people should look up, and people should look up not only because he's an artist, but also because there's a lot of philosophy behind the art that he presents. Despite, I mean, he's been capturing multiple forms with, from multiple directions, but he is always approached it. There's a philosophy behind that, which is quite interesting for me. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, very, very interesting. And great choice to start the discussion on also climate emergencies.
Right. So moving on, uh, the next, the image that you see is by Nicholas Roerich. Nicholas Roerich was a Russian, artist. I mean, a Russian. I mean, so art calling him an artist would be very small, putting him into a very small cube. He's much more than that, a botanist and a scientist, and a lot more than that. But what you have in front of you is the great Himalayas that he has painted. Until I went to Nepal, Kathmandu, and I went to Nagarkot and I looked, I never believed that these colors actually exist on the range. But they are true. When the sun actually hits at the sunrise, and within 15-20 minutes, there are such shades of orange, red, blue. I mean, it's amazing to look at. The entire, he's painted more than, tens of thousands of paintings, and they're, spread across the world. A lot of them are in Nagar in the Himachal as well, where we have the Roerich, reserve. And which I had the, lucky fortune to be there, last year. It's an amazing thing. So I think, the Himalayas kind of, I mean, you look at them and you just feel insignificant. But at the same time, the light when you see at them, when the sunshine hits it, when the sun rays hit the peaks and create all these colors, that insignificance itself fills you and you become much more than what you could have ever been.
I think it also brings home the point that, sort of nature is the greatest sort of artist. When you see such transformation happening within a sort of span of minutes in front of you, what is
That's right.
visually white sort of changing so much. And also it's interesting that you talk about the Himalayas and Everest, because I think again during the entire lockdown, one of the things one keeps hearing on social media is how we are suddenly able to see the Himalayas from distances that had not been seen from for many, many years. You'll have somebody writing in from Himachal or Punjab, and then you have people talking in from some corner of Bihar. And that's again interesting because, when you don't have the pollution, when you don't have the everyday, transmission of gases and all, nature actually then clears up and you can literally see it from every side and experience the bounties of it also.
Agreed. I'm in Delhi, and Delhi used to be absolutely gray. Nothing used to be visible. I can see far distances. I cannot see the Himalayas, obviously, because they are really too far from us. But Punjab have, have documented, from Saharanpur, people have documented the visuals of Himalayas being visible. And it's
Right.
also a way to look at, uh, Rorik was some individual. He actually packed things and took his family, mules, and the entire entourage just started from Russia to India. They came across China, the entire Central Asia, where then they came via China, and then they settled in India. It's so amazing people could do these things. It's an inspiration, today we are locked down, we are sitting closed in our own homes, we are in our own islands. But at the same time, when you look at these things, they kind of inspire you, and there is this hope that there is going to be a future where I can travel. I mean, when I say I mean anybody. So we can all, kind of connect with that concept of travel to see things, not the
Right.
travelers where the traveler is just and
Right.
I don't
I
want to talk
think
about that.
it's
Yeah.
another aspect that you bring up which is very interesting, again from an artistic point of view, and I think even for everybody, the whole concept of travel, the whole concept of journeys, both internal and external. Right now, yes, we can't do the external journey, but even by just simply looking at art, because again,
Right.
we are seeing hashtags like museum from home, we are seeing hashtags like culture in quarantine. To be able to experience art in difficult times, it allows us this sort of armchair traveling into lands, even if it is a little momentary escape from the daily grind. Do you find that yourself engaging in that during quarantine?
Sure, I think, we are very privileged that we've got Google, which can provide us a lot of things. And apart from this, there's this entire plethora of artwork that have been created across the world. So I can check up something about the Incas, I can check up about the Aztecs, I can check out something about the Maoris, and I can look at what they saw in that time period. And I can connect with
Right,
that. What this
right,
lockdown has also done has given me a lot of time. And I'm a curator, unfortunately, because of the lockdown, and not too many events are happening, which I used to organize or I used to be a part of. So what I'm also getting to have is a lot of time at my dispense, where I can see all these things, where I can explore all these things, and I can allow them to inhabit my mind and impact my philosophy and my thought process, which is such a
so
beautiful thing.
time for recuperation of sort of building new content, new knowledge. And it's interesting that you talked about curation. In fact, I think I just chanced upon today something from the Ajmer Museum. I think they are doing their first online exhibition, and it's so interesting to even read about it. I haven't seen it yet, but I think they've just announced it. I think it's supposed to happen, or it's just started today. So
Right.
I think you're also probably going to begin to see curation. I think I saw something from Chatterjee and Lal. There's some
They are
online
doing that. Yeah,
exhibitions.
I also saw. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I
So,
think it's
I mean,
interesting.
just today I had a session on NewsX channel. I hope that it will be, the recording will be streamed sometime tomorrow, where we had the museum directors from Maharashtra. We had people from museum, the director Malika was there. And so the point is, all of them spoke about how they are making that remote access available to the individual.
Right.
I mean, so, I mean, hats off to again internet and all this access that we have allows us to empower our lives right now, because art
Right.
culture is so very important to fulfill. I mean, so it's so soul filling.
Right. And I think, almost as a salutation to that, tomorrow's theme actually on Museum Week is for technology. Our focus is tomorrow on technology. So we will discuss more of technology tomorrow. So let's move to the next piece.
Yeah. So that's an interesting piece by a Russian artist again. I mean, so that's Vasily Vereshchagin. So Vasily Vereshchagin was a soldier, and I mean, he travels around a lot of. But he was also an artist. So he travels across India as well, and he's captured a lot of Indian, I mean, Maharajas with all those decked up elephants and everything. But he tried. I mean, since he was a soldier, he captured a lot of war. So this actually is I mean, so it's a pyramid of skulls, and probably a little negative, kind of, I mean, it impacts you very negatively. But at the same time, it is something that we as humans, I feel that it would be interesting to look at this. But because if you see the entire land around it, it's so decrepit. It's so, it's like a desert which has no human, I mean, existence anymore. The life is without humans, and the entire understanding of wars that, I mean, humans go into, and what do we do to the climate, what do we do to the environment around us. Look at the nuclear, the bombs that were, that and the kind of impact that they've had. Look at the basic amount of, bombing or anything that happens. Syria, Gaza Strip, I mean, India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, which country has not faced these kind of challenges? And we as nations go around impacting our environment, our climate, our surroundings, which should be our nurture. And, so I think this painting in front of us, I've seen this in real life, and it's massive. It's amazingly huge. And when you look at it, I mean, you
Also,
feel so small in front of it.
I think it's also this entire reminder that every action has consequences. So every
Absolutely.
little step from the environmental point also has consequences, and I think we are custodians of the environment, of the sort of context around us. Not just for us but also for future generations. And if we don't take care of it now, this is already probably the future for
So if
us.
you look at it, it's not as if there is no life. There are birds. There are birds of prey, and there are birds which are, I mean, feasting on the leftovers of the human tribe. So the
Right.
point is that nature will survive. Will humans survive is the question. So the entire question that we should raise to ourselves is: Can we make and can we leave Earth as a habitable, condition for ourselves, for the children to come? So
Right.
I felt that somehow this was a very impacting painting, related to climate that we could put. So I'm
I
just
think
moving on to,
also,
yeah,
another thing that I'm taking away, because I see birds flying also sort of behind in
right.
what's interesting is also, I think, a cue of that we need to collaborate. It is not an individual sort of initiative that's going to work. People with different mindsets, different skill sets, the power of the collective needs to be leveraged again, in terms of fighting or doing the right things for the environment. Yes, we need to start with one, start with ourselves, but also sort of join the collective narrative. That's an interesting sort of perspective that
Absolutely.
I
I mean,
think.
look at the Corona situation. I mean, sorry.
Whereas
So,
on the other hand,
yeah,
yeah, I'm saying on the left you have a single bird, and as you sort of move the painting, the number of birds sort of increase. That's how I was looking at it.
true, true. So, so the next work, I mean, so I've chosen two works, I mean, this one and the subsequent one, because if you're talking about nature and climate, I think these two artists always need to be mentioned. So uh, we're talking about Constable, John Constable, and we're talking about William Turner. So these two, existed around the same time, and they depicted our nature around us in two very different ways. So Constable was always about the drama that was in the human existence and how the human existence is. So you always find something that speaks about the that human element that is there in the nature. I mean, so in any kind of a landscape that you would create, there would be a boat or a building that would be there. So you'd make sure that it would be there to make humans realize that we are a part of this, and whatever we create, this is what we create. While Turner was always about the magnificence of the nature itself, I mean, how large and beyond us it can be, and how insignificant we can be in front of it. So he would always leave a small element of a human interaction or a human element there, but he would make sure that he would try and capture the atmosphere, he would try and capture the aura that was around you.
Okay. It's
These are
also
two work.
interesting that the same topic is also approached with such diverse lens, in terms of
Right.
artists.
Yeah. So I mean, just to kind of put it together again. So that's Constable, and this is Turner. The next is by Monet. Claude Monet was, I mean, he already had failing eyesight and everything, but he still painted the water lily, the garden, around his in the backyard that he had. But he captured the nature in tranquility, which is again something that I mean, so each artist's approach is very different to whatever they kind of pray and they kind of bring to their canvases, and what the viewer can kind of pick up from their canvases. So the water is still, absolutely still. I mean, there are reflections, there are lotuses, there are the lotus pond is, repellent. It has a lot of those leaves, the lotus leaves and everything around it, but the color that you could see. So you have to realize that this person who's painting this was probably not even able to see 10% of what has been painted here. But still, the significance of what he has painted here is, I mean, it's alarmingly huge. He has a big
Sure.
name, and I mean, rightfully so.
Yeah, it also I think brings to sort of light the idea of that, when you're just talking about painting, there's literally sight, but there's also vision that you're talking about.
Right, right, right.
That concept of, how do you conceptualize it? And again, when you look at climate, when you look at what the environment means to us, I think it's also about understanding and having a vision of that, for us, our ecosystem is not just us, our family, or our home. It's also the world around us, the parks, the roads, and also trying to understand that we are part of a larger ecosystem. It can be even simple things that sometimes we keep the house clean, but probably end up throwing a wrapper on the road, and it all adds up to issues of climate, issues of environmental degradation. It's interesting to sort of, that's the linkage that sort of is triggering in my mind as you're discussing this.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with whatever you said, that it's important to look at whatever is around us and see how we are impacting it. Because, uh, and at times when you have nothing else to do and you look around yourself, there's so much to do. Just to
Right.
look at things, just to hear the breeze kind of blowing. I mean, and Delhi is right now amazing. The kind of weather we have right now, I mean, I've not seen it for decades, but it's
Yes.
beautiful. It's letting itself know, and I mean, at the same time, I kind of feel so energized with whatever is around me. Also, I mean, life is kind of telling me, that kind of wait at home, don't go out, don't do things. But there's so much energy around you that kind of helps you to live through these times.
Right, right. I think everyone's talking about being able to hear birds.
Right.
Whether it's a Delhi or a Bombay, all of the metropolitan cities, I think one has heard about people saying we can hear birds again. A lot
Right.
of people say you can see stars, two things that you
Yeah.
probably don't have time for also most of the time when one is sort of, hustling and bustling through the daily life. But yes, one does get a feeling that nature is healing, and let's hope we are able to sort of give nature the chance to heal even while we sort of transition back to daily life post
Absolutely.
lockdown also.
Absolutely. So going on to the next one, uh, which is a very, I mean, so it's the Starry Night. Most people would know about it. Are, are all generations put together, I mean, this impressionistic approach towards whatever surrounds us. I mean, be it the sun, the stars, and everything. Like you mentioned, the stars. It's one thing to look at the stars, but another to kind of let them be a part of your own world and feel comfortable with them. I know Van Gogh, Vincent Van Gogh, the artist here, I mean, he had a very troubled life, I mean, but at the same time, he was so comfortable with these things, how they swirled in the night sky and became a part of his world, which he then shared with us. So I think I feel very happy that he did make this painting, and then it became a part of our human, I mean, existence, where this is a part. So you can see the tree, and you can see the houses there. But what stands out is how the wind has been captured, and how the stars exist as circular things. I don't know. I mean, I can look at this painting for days.
Yeah, the other thing is that you can literally keep looking at it and it starts speaking to you in different ways. You can literally
Right,
move a little to the left, a little to the right, and I think that's the also beauty of it. With nature, you could look at nature from one side and the same thing looks very different from the other side. You can really spend hours gazing at this. What it's also reminding me is that, and since you said, how artistic works also sort of inspire people and generations.
right,
Recently, what I was seeing, the Van Gogh Museum, on each of the birthday of Van Gogh, they have been
right,
asking people to recreate his art, and I've seen so much of this painting, even on people making cakes, for example. Baking has been very popular. I've seen
right.
versions of even on cakes, so not just in painting. Sometimes how we adopt and get inspired by art actually seeps even into our daily lives. That's also very
Right.
interesting to sort of just think about at times.
So what
Yeah.
is interesting is art can be reflection of somebody's life. I mean, so the artist's life is reflected in the artwork that the artist created. But once that artwork has been created, it takes a complete different journey, and it can travel different distances, like you're mentioning about the baking and the cakes and everything. I remember that
Right.
3 years back, I did a show of, a multimedia display of the 11 modernists, which included Van Gogh and Klimt and all those. And we had got, it was at Select City Walk, with the projectors and, really high screens of 25 feet and 360 degrees all around you. The everything that was around you, this was animated. So the entire swirls were actually swirling. They weren't static, they were dynamic, they were moving around. And this entire thing of where the art can grow much, beyond the artist and become a part of the folklore, and become a part of the lives of the current and the contemporary generation, and can
Right.
have a different meaning from what it started off with. So,
Yeah.
so that's the
So
power of art.
always saying that meaning will also evolve with time, and sometimes sort of older artworks could also take on newer meanings.
Absolutely. So, I remember when I saw the Mona Lisa at the Louvre, and it's a small painting. We've always seen, a larger than life, and it's, very big. And thankfully, I gave it enough time, because what happens is when you go to the Louvre, unfortunately, a lot of people will not be able to travel to the Louvre, but they can check it out online, because Louvre is online, and you can check out Mona Lisa there. It's a small painting, and there are too many people there. And when I went way back in '98, thankfully there weren't the selfie cameras there. But I can just imagine. I've seen the images of people crowding the entire, the vision of anybody looking at Mona Lisa. And now suddenly we are in a situation where nobody can access those museums, but all those museums have come into our palms, where we can access them. We have this opportunity. I think everybody should utilize, think about half an hour a day, just look at what are the museums available online across the world. MoMA, it could be Tate, it could be Hermitage, it could be any of the museums across the world. Check them out, see what they have, because they really will enrich our lives, that individual who's looking at them. So that's something that I would like to share. Yeah.
Sure, yeah, because I think it's also a time that museums have, probably what would have taken us 15, 20 years to embrace, I think we've managed to do instead of 50, in 2 or 3 months, and probably will just get better in the next 1 to 2 years. The whole idea of museum from home is just so fascinating. The whole idea that all of what's actually stored in the vaults, which also most museums don't get to display because
Right.
they don't have the space, but online now you could be actually curating a new exhibition every 15 days or every month. There's possibility to do so much more also online. That's really, really
So
fascinating.
that's what augmented reality and virtual reality gives you, that opportunity to create a 360-degree virtual tour of a new exhibition every week, every month, or whatever. And that's amazing. Where remotely we are able to access all these things. So that's amazing. Uh, Moving on to the next one, which is the last in my series. I picked Ram Kumar deliberately, because Ram Kumar is one Indian artist who really approached the landscape in a very abstract format. So if you looked at all the works before this, the person is not visible. Person here, if you look at him, he's so, he's so simple. But you look at the kind of work that he has created, the work and the impact that he has created for everybody beyond, and the abstraction that in which the plains and the mountains and everything is. I'm not sure if my mobile is able to capture the essence of the painting that is there, uh, because of the folds that happen, because the contours that are there, they all kind of reflect the landscape, which was always something that he captured and he brought for the Indians. So this is a very Indian abstract form that he has captured and given to the Indians to see.
Yeah, I think what's also sort of fascinating about this is, it sort of connects the micro to the macro. So the individual himself, the artist himself, and also the translation of his vision, in terms of the interpretation, both the colors, the levels, and what you're trying to show us. That's really very, very fascinating to sort of see. When you look at all of these eight, are you picking up a common story, or are they uniquely different? Is there anything that you pick up that sort of as a running thread?
I think so. So when I picked up the series, when I picked up these individual, I actually searched for them online. None of these, I don't have a copyright of on any of the images that I have showcased here. But the point is that, I felt that all images, I think I'm coming from a very personal point of view, that they impacted my understanding of art when I was trying to understand how art should be accessed and how art should be understood. Uh, I purely work in abstracts when I am working on my own works. And I'm definitely connected more with the abstract forms. But at the same time, it's you cannot negate the technique, the visual satisfaction that the artists have provided, be it Vasily Vereshchagin, be it Monet, or be it Ram Kumar, or be it any of the eight artists that I've chosen. I actually wanted to include six or seven contemporary Indian artists deliberately so that I could show, and I couldn't do that. But I think what connects all of them is that it does not matter if it is abstract or if it is realistic or if it is in hyper detail. The point is what you see. The artist frames the painting much before the frame is actually put on on the painting. They have already decided as to what show and what not to show. So this is really the last in my series. I picked Ram Kumar deliberately because Ram Kumar is one Indian artist who really approached the landscape in a very abstract format. So if you looked at all the works before this, the person is not visible. Person here, so if you look at him, he's so, he's so simple. But you look at the kind of work that he has created, the work and the impact that he has created for everybody beyond, and the abstraction that in which the plains and the mountains and everything is. I'm not sure if my mobile is able to capture the essence of the painting that is there, because of the folds that happen, because the contours that are there, they all kind of reflect the landscape, which was always something that he captured and he brought for the Indians. So this is a very Indian abstract form that he has captured and given to the Indians to see.
Yeah, I think what's also sort of fascinating about this is, it sort of connects the micro to the macro. So the individual himself, the artist himself, and also the translation of his vision, in terms of the interpretation, both the colors, the levels, and what you're trying to show us. That's really very, very fascinating to sort of see. When you look at all of these eight, are you picking up a common story, or are they uniquely different? Is there anything that you pick up that sort of as a running thread?
I think so. So when I picked up the series, when I picked up these individual, I actually searched for them online. None of these, I don't have a copyright of on any of the images that I have showcased here. But the point is that, I felt that all images, I think I'm coming from a very personal point of view, that they impacted my understanding of art when I was trying to understand how art should be accessed and how art should be understood. Uh, I purely work in abstracts when I am working on my own works. And I'm definitely connected more with the abstract forms. But at the same time, it's you cannot negate the technique, the visual satisfaction that the artists have provided, be it Vasily Vereshchagin, be it Monet, or be it Ram Kumar, or be it any of the eight artists that I've chosen. I actually wanted to include six or seven contemporary Indian artists deliberately so that I could show, and I couldn't do that. But I think what connects all of them is that it does not matter if it is abstract or if it is realistic or if it is in hyper detail. The point is what you see. The artist frames the painting much before the frame is actually put on on the painting. They have already decided as to what show and what not to show. So this deliberation, this desire to express, and this desire to express for the artist is actually so very important. They cannot live if they are not able to express. And I've been speaking to a lot of my friend artists during this period, and they've not stopped. It's such a wonderful thing. And they are so. I had a Russian artist who was doing a lot of uh, plein air, which is like in situ, where you sit and paint what you see in front of yourself. And he was painting India, and he got stuck in India during the Corona period. He was at my place for 1 month. He couldn't sit idle. He went out. He still kept on painting whatever he see around himself. And because that is something that fulfills the realization of the individual that we are. As artists, we need to express and we need to put it out there.
That's such a lovely thought, that as artists we need to express and put it out there. I think I just want to extend that thought and sort of conclude also by saying that there's an artist in each one of us, and whatever be our chosen form of expression, let that survive. And nature has its own form of expression. So long as we sort of continue to respect the same, I think nature is going to thrive. We must respect our own space, but we must also respect the nature and the environment around us. That's the only way I think we are all going to thrive. Any last words, Akshat? Then maybe we can have you back on screen also.
Um, so once again, I'm trying. Yeah. So there I am back.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean.
Words,
So final words, I would first of all like to thank you and thank Music Culture Marketing for putting these things together for people to kind of gaze upon and probably bring into their own lives, and how museums can, enhance our own understanding of nature, life, and everything around us. Corona is, I mean, time can be a big leveler. And the time that we have right now with us, if they are challenging times, art and culture can help a lot of us into understanding, and keeping our sanity in place. So let's kind of help each other out. I mean, I don't have any really high philosophical things to say, but I would say that look at art wherever you can find it, and art will make your life better. That's all that I can say.
But I think it's also so very important to keep our mental health in place, and art has a huge role to sort of play in that. I know you're doing some work in that space. You want to tell one or two lines about that?
So, mind at ease underscore image is what we have at Instagram. Mind at ease image is mental health. What we are trying to do is get mental health specialists to speak to us about very relevant topics, and making them easier to consume and understand, and removing the taboo around the mental health issues, because they are required to be discussed any day. But considering that we are all, I mean, these are very different times that we are, and this is what we are trying to do and trying to bring to people. They can check out on Instagram at _ML. I'm also doing a YouTube channel. It's called In Conversation with Aakshat Sinha. That's my name, Aakshat Sinha. In Conversation with Aakshat Sinha. So you can check that out. I've got about 15 odd videos where I'm speaking to mental health specialists, where I'm speaking to artists, where I'm speaking to doctors. In all, I'm just trying to get people to be aware more about themselves and their. That's all that I'm trying to say.
These difficult times, when sometimes the climate emergency, when we are looking at all of that, both art as well as focus on mental health is going to really go a long way in keeping us all safe and secure. So stay safe and catch you offline soon.
I have one thing to plug in. I'm sorry that I should have added it. I also conduct a festival called I Am Identity Art Marathon, which is a physical, interaction festival which happens end of May to mid June. This year, for obvious reasons, we'll be doing it online. Kindly try and check for I am identity art. That's our Instagram. Or if you just search for I Identity Art Marathon, you'll find a lot about us. We'll be on soon. Kindly do join us online for that festival.
So we look forward to that, and thank you once again for being part of Museum Week. We are going to be back tomorrow at 3 with a special session on technology with IME Bangalore. So see you all then, and good night. Thank you.